귀여워 웃을 때 귀여워 너무 귀여운 나만의 연인 그대 GD Hey yo Charles Drop it on me
I went to Korea in the summer to visit my family and go to the dentist.
I went to Korea this summer for vacation.
I went to Korea for vacation about 2 months.
And I went over to Korea to visit my friends and family. I stayed for about a month and a half, and I stayed at my grandparents' house.
So I go every other year about that time, and I went for vacation to visit my mom's side of the family, and I went with my friend Lois. She came with us too.
I went to Korea in the summer of 2008. I went there for my summer internship at an architecture firm. I stayed at my grandma's house.
Yeah, I came to go to Korea every 5 years, and I was doing some research in Korea.
I went to a lot of places for like amusement parks, like Everland that has all those fun roller coasters, and I went to the beach and got some clam in the mud, and I saw my grandparents and uncles and aunts that I had never seen in a long time.
I went to lots of fun places named Everland, Caribbean Bay, and Lotte World.
The best part of my trip was the food, of course, because it was very delicious. And in Korea, they can deliver the food to us in only just 10 minutes.
The best part was food. I grew up in Korea, so it actually brought a lot of memories back, and it actually fulfilled a lot of the childhood memories that I actually had and those feelings of nostalgia.
The best part of Korea was definitely the food. I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of that response. The food is really good, really cheap. The shopping's fun too. The style's a little different, but it's still very adjustable, and I really like the nightlife.
Bonding with my friends and family because I got to know more about them.
It was really, really meaningful because I connected aspects of my history with the land in Korea. It was just meaningful because there was a connection with my history here, with my history in Korea. Food, obviously, I love the food there. It is so yummy. It's probably like better than the food here, and not just like the Korean food, but like the Korean Chinese food or the Korean/American food. It just everything tastes better there. Spaghetti tastes better there. I just love the food.
Baking class because it gave me an experience that I will take forever. The weather was very humid and it rained all the time, so it made me kind of sad. Bad weather. It was horrible. It was humid, it was monsoon season, and it was just horribly hot.
Sometimes I feel like Koreans are a little rude. When you go to markets and stuff, people are really nice, but on the street, Korean people are pretty rude. They'll bump into you and not say sorry, and if I can't speak if I don't say the right word in Korean, they're like, oh, you're Korean, how come you don't know Korean? And the weather, it's either too hot or too cold when I go, summer or winter. So.
The worst part, I had to go to the dentist, and it hurted so much. And Korean, because I wasn't that good at Korean, so.
The worst part was that I couldn't understand what they were saying. I couldn't understand my relatives. They were talking in Korean. I was like, oh, what are they talking about? I really want to understand more Korean and to get more better at Korean.
The worst part was definitely traffic and subway. There's just too much people in Korea, too many cars, and it was literally filled every single time I was traveling.
I think there's some issues with Korea. There's smog, pollution is awful. I just think environmental toxins are all over Korea. And I'm worried about Korea because I don't think there's enough checks and balances about how to keep the environment clean. And I think cancer is on the rise there like it is all over the world. So that's what really bothers me actually about Korea. It's just the environmental pollution. They've torn down all these, mountains and all. I think smoking though has gone down. I mean, every time I go, like less of my relatives are smoking, so that's a positive sign I think in Korea. But I feel like it's the environmental degradation of Korea that troubles me each time I go. I think the most saddest part of my trip to Korea was when I went to Korea almost 12 years ago. I was at the DMZ, and I realized how Korea was separated. It made me really incredibly sad. This was a nation that was one nation, and now it's two different nations. And I was so floored that there was so much attention to this division, all this energy. And I actually looked in the eyes of a North Korean guard at the DMZ, and it made me cry. I was so sad. This country was divided, and these were the same. Everyone's Korean, but we're divided. It made me really incredibly sad, and it made me look at Korea a little differently. It made me realize that all the resources that Korea has, all the energy and attention goes to this division. And I realized what this country could do if there was no division. It'd be a different country, but as of now, all that attention, energy is around that division. I hope one day we can see unification. That's my dream.
I could speak Korean better. I can speak Korean more better, and I can understand my mom and dad's languages. And I'm really proud of myself because I finally learned how to do Korean more better.
After the trip, I learned a lot of Korean words. It helped me understand what my mom and dad were saying, so I can go into the conversation.
Yeah, because I got to understand more Korean and I got to learn more about friends and family.
It's really nice being able to go and see my mom's side of the family. Like, I grew up with my dad's side here in America, but my mom's side, they're all in Korea. And it's nice knowing that my mom is really happy being able to go back, and it's nice being able to connect with them and just to share with them American life, and same way I get to learn more about Korean culture and Korean life.
It was a good experience. It gave me a good time to reunite with my family and also to learn about the culture that I came from.
It affected me very positively with bringing back memories and stuff. But now, since I went back, I just miss it too much.
Well, I think the good ways that it affects my life is I feel deeply connected to my relatives there, on my father's side especially. I feel this deep connection. There's folks there that look like my father. I think that's meaningful for me, a connection. I think, if anything, I realized with these trips that I'm truly Korean American. I can never be Korean, and that is okay. I'm so okay with that. I think the definition of being Korean really needs to be Korean American for those of us that are raised here. We're not exactly Korean, and that's okay. We're making our home here. Home is here. Connecting here. We're creating history here, and so I think that's what I get from each of my trips each time, is that Korea is Korea, and there is a connection there, but home is not there. Home is here. Home is Korean American, being Korean American.
What's the
Like the nightlife.
It's like you don't know what you got.
special sauce on it?
Always looking. Can't never stick with one thing. There ain't no part-time love. You find that old kind of love. That old school love. But more unique.
헤어지지 못하는 여자 떠나가지 못하는 남자 사랑하지 않는 우리 그래서 no 헤어지지 못하는 여자 떠나가지 못하는 남자 사랑하지 않는 우리 그래서 no
우린 300만 원짜리 중고차로 함께 어디든 다녔지 난 부럽지 않게 팔짱을 끼고 한 장의 사진에 추억을 담고 밤잠을 설쳐가며 서로를 알아가고 내 꿈은 너의 미래가 되어 우린 서로를 따르는 한 쌍의 아름다운 새요 채워져도 부족했던 사람 다시 태어나도 만나고픈 사람 하지만 세월 앞에서는 역시 서로의 욕심을 이기지 못해 욕실에 홀로 앉아오는 너의 울음소리 나를 쏘아보는 눈초리 날이 갈수록 더해 난 또 이별을 생각해 하루 종일